Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of WrestleZone Unfiltered, the importance of the announcers. One of these days, we'll figure this new software shit out and stop having these bugs in it. That's okay. We're here. We're there. We're everywhere. We got all the goodies here tonight. My name is Jason, and of course, being joining me, the boss man, the man with the plan that gets us all into it, Mr. Connor Hayes. Connor, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Should be a good show. I always like talking about the announcers of wrestling, so should be a good show.
Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate you here and everything you do for the All Elite Zone and the Worldwide of Wrestling podcast. Always staying busy, and of course, in her pink blanket, ready to go, keeping us all warm. The wrestling therapy patient, Miss Danny the Diva, our resident diva. Danny, how you tonight?
I'm good. And my shirt that my sister got me, thanks, Jen, it says wrestling is my therapy.
It used to be. Now it makes me want to throw shit at the TV, but that's a different story for a different day.
Oh, it makes me want to throw stuff too when the Bears lose. But for all you Packer fans, how does it feel to be embarrassed not only by the Bears, but by the Eagles? Yes. Okay, that's all I'm going to say.
They were favored. It's all good. We'll see what my Dolphins really pulled a stinker this year because we don't know how to sign a decent backup quarterback, knowing that Tua is going to get hurt. That's just what he does. He's great when he's in there, but he's fragile. He's been fragile since he was at Alabama, and I'm a Bama fan as well. So, it is what it is. Maybe they'll pick up one this year that can actually come in and throw to all the weapons we have if he gets hurt next year. But Philly's had a good year. They were on, I think, an 11-game win streak before the rookie sensation, Mr. Jaden Daniels, pulled it out there at the end and beat them. So, I'll be interested to see what the Redskins. Oh, excuse me, don't mean to offend nobody. The Washington football team. Oh, we moved on from that too. The Commanders, see what they can do against Philly this coming weekend. I still say it's going to be I'd like to see Detroit winning, if you want my honest opinion. Yeah. It's been so long, but I think it's Buffalo's and Kansas City's to lose. We'll see how that goes. Lamar Jackson's had a hell of a year, but they just don't have the defense to stop Kansas City or Buffalo, in my opinion. But that's why they play the game. And we're getting ready to have
and guys, drop it in the chat too. Comments who you think the Super Bowl is going to be. I think it would be kind of cool for the Lions to go. My niece's husband is a Rams fan, so he's definitely rooting for his Rams. But guys, drop it. You're listening. Drop it in the comments. Just out of curiosity, who you think's going to go to the Super Bowl and who's going to win the whole thing?
Well, after the last two, it's
we know it's not going to be the Packers or the Bears.
I'm not. I won't pick against Kansas City till they lose because they won last two and last year, and just like this year, that's really different from the years past when they've been good. It's a patchwork of a lot of guys with 5 or 6 stars in there with Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey. They picked up DeAndre Hopkins and of course Chris Jones on defense, but it's just a lot of patchwork of guys that weren't really doing anything anywhere else. Got late in the draft, picked up as free agents, and nobody had signed. So Andy Reid's done a hell of a job there. But again, I won't pick against them until they lose because it's theirs to lose. So, but this week on WrestleZone Unfiltered, we are not talking ESPN or NFL or anything else. We just got off topic. That's okay. It's cold weather. It's football season. We're getting there to the
Titans and the Jets.
Maybe next year.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe next year.
Titans.
Titans are already out.
Well, before we get into this week's episode, we'll do a quick recap. We saw Penta debut on Monday Night Raw, and what I thought was a hell of a match that he had with Gable. I was amazed. I didn't know the guy could actually talk. I'd never heard him speak before. AEW with this Tony Storm stuff that they're doing, I'll be really interested to see how it pays off in Australia with her match with Mariah May. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping they do not let me down once again, but we will see. It's the most interesting thing they have going on, in my opinion. We saw today that TNA and the WWE has signed a multi-year partnership, and a lot of people are asking, what they think this will put TNA in the number 2 spot. I don't know about that, but I will say what I think opens the door for TNA to possibly get a better TV deal. This is the first time in history, in recent history, in the past 25 years, that the WWE has not had 2 cable shows. They only have one, and and you don't have a cable show per se on Monday night. And I don't think anybody's going to want to compete with Raw, but you never know. But it could open the door for TNA to get a cable deal to where we can actually see them a lot easier than we can now, whether it be through the app or Access TV that, like I said, I used to get and watch New Japan on there. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think I think it's good for both of them. From what I heard, the next pay-per-view coming up is going to be a joint venture between TNA and NXT. So we'll see what happens. What do you think?
I think signing with our WWE with that partnership would be great for exposure. And I remember living in Milwaukee, and it was circa 2004. We were watching TNA, and then our cable company that we had out there, and we had Charter, they ended up dropping the channel TNA was on, and then we kind of forgot about it. And we stream through Hulu. We can't watch TNA. And then again, I'm going to do another channel search, but as far as I know, we don't have it. It would be interesting. So when I see these TNA people, I'm like, oh, I know who you are. I know who you are, because a lot of them I don't know, with the exception of Nick Nemeth, who, as we know, was Dolph Ziggler. So I'm excited to see what they can do with WWE. And you're right. I think the exposure would be good, because not everybody has access to access, no pun intended. But again, for that exposure, this could take TNA to a little bit further heights and really give some competition even to AEW.
What do you think about that, Connor?
Yeah, I think this partnership probably, I think it will help TNA get a better TV deal. They are doing better attendance numbers than they've had in years.
Mm-hmm.
It was this last year that they had a number that was their biggest since the Hogan era. Looks like they got a pretty good number for this Saturday. It's Saturday or Sunday. TNA Genesis. Looks like NXT will have some presence on there. I do hope with this partnership that AJ Styles gets to finish his career in TNA. I think that's where he should end his career. Is in TNA. I really think that AJ Styles is the biggest thing to come from there. Yeah, Hogan went there, but he drove the most fans away. He pretty much ruined the damn company, along with Dixie Carter. I think she's to blame as well. But I think this partnership with TNA and NXT or WWE will hope. I think it's going to get a lot more eyeballs on on TNA, and hopefully. It will get to them getting a bigger TV deal. I wouldn't mind seeing TNA on USA Network, since all they really have is SmackDown. But since they have a partnership, I don't think WWE would mind them being on a program that's on there. So we'll see.
Not with the partnership. As long as it's not going up against one of their shows, I don't think they'd have an issue with it at all.
So it wouldn't be able to be on Monday, Tuesday, or Friday. So.
Maybe put it on a Thursday night when there's nothing else on. Football. Thursday night football's over. This would be a perfect time to try to get it on there.
Yeah, they currently are on Thursdays. So.
Yeah, and I'll comment on a couple other things too, real quick. I've seen a lot of people sharing stuff about the big bad bully WWE scheduling a Saturday night's main event for All In the same night as All In Texas.
I saw that. Yeah.
I will tell you this, before you open your mouth and prove you're a fool, just keep it shut so we don't know. I mean, go back in the annals of history, look up stuff before you start commenting. The WWE actually did not start that. They just did it better. Before Turner bought Crockett, Crockett put up the first Clash of the Champions for free on TBS.
I remember that.
Against WrestleMania. Vince, in turn, created the Survivor Series and put it up against Starrcade free on USA. Then he created the Royal Rumble and put it up free on USA against the Bunkhouse Brawl. So, again, Crockett started it. Vince just did it better. And, for everybody saying it, they're so worried about AEW that they take their pot shots just for the simple shit that you hear other people say, especially Tony Khan. But they don't care about AEW. They don't. And it's not a knock on AEW. Vince has never cared about anybody. And they are actually now doing better business than they ever did with Vince. And, you heard Michael Cole Monday night, went after Penta won, welcome to the big time. Was that a little shout at AEW? Of course it was. But, nobody takes it personal except for Tony. And, it's business. Go out there and do what you got to do. And, worry about you. Worrying about the WWE is it's going to drive you crazy. It's not going to make good business. So, everybody just needs to worry about themselves and call it a day. And, like I said, this stuff's been going on for years. This is not a shot at AEW. It's just stuff that's been going on. So, worry about what you need to put in the seats and don't worry about what they're doing.
Yeah, it seems that here recently, a lot of the people that leave AEW to go to WWE, he takes it personally. With Ray Phoenix, I'm pretty sure he's not pleased with Penta. As Penta, if anyone's seen Raw on Monday after the match with Gable, he talked really good. He spoke in Spanish and also English.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't know the guy could talk.
Yeah, neither did I.
I've met Pentagon twice, and he talks clear as day as English. And I've always wondered, like, why do they have a manager with him when he can talk English, like both of them can, Phoenix and Penta? I never understood that, but he got over really, really, really good. I didn't expect him to be that over. I think he's more over than the Motor City Machine Guns are when they came into WWE. It's not a knock at them. Motor City Machine Guns are a good tag team, but I think you can market a lot off of Penta with the mask, merchandising, obviously action figures. I mean, golly, you can make 100 different action figures of Penta and all different kinds of masks. But the one thing that probably stuck out to him was Penta called WWE his new home.
It kind of is. It's where he's going to be for however long he signed a contract. So.
And he pretty much let it be known that this was his dream to be in WWE.
And that's what people don't understand. They get so upset when people like us talk about it. It's not a knock on AEW, but if anybody's gotten in this business the past 40 years, their dream has been to perform at WrestleMania. That's not a knock on anybody. I mean, but who the hell wouldn't? I mean, you're in front of the world. You're in front of a stadium full of people and millions watching at home. It's the biggest show that's out there until something can come along and surpass it. Whether it ever does or not, that remains to be seen. But that's not a knock at any company. That's it's WrestleMania, and that's what these guys and girls train for. They fight for.
That's the biggest wrestling event of the year. Like nothing can top it.
Some of those older guys that have left and went to AEW, whether it be a Christian or an Edge, Bobby Lashley, they've all had their Mania moments. They're comfortable where they are in their career, and they're going out there and doing what they want to do. They're not being told what they have to do, and I think the Hurt syndicate's come off better than Edge or Christian, but that's just a Christian. I think's come off better than Edge, to be quite honest with you as well. But again, that's my opinion. Yeah, and from everything we hear, Aleister Black, Malachi is headed back to the WWE, and that's why you're seeing the promo that Will Ospreay cut last week, and the little talk that Edge Cope had with Brody King and Julia Hart in the back. So, I'm just not a shout at AEW, but I know he's wanted to go back for a little bit because that's where his wife is. He wants to be with his wife. When Vince released him, they had just started pushing him in an Intercontinental title feud. Hell, I can't remember who the champion was at the time, but he was cutting promos. He had his hair pulled back, was in glasses, trying to use big words and different character than what he had presented, but still Aleister Black with the darkness behind him, kind of the psychotic serial killer, maybe like a Dexter type thing, being really smart, but telling you he's coming after you. And then, like in the middle of that program, they just released him. Well, that was Vince. Vince released a lot of Triple H's guys, and so Triple H, Paul's got the book. He has a lot of influence. You got The Rock dropping F-bombs on NXT, and they're doing what they do. So again, AEW needs to be concerned about AEW, and anybody that leaves AEW for the WWF that's never been there. WWE, WrestleMania, for anybody that's ever trained to do this, that is their dream. They're not going to come out there and tell you that on AEW programming. They're not going to tell you that in the podcast while they're under contract to AEW, but that's the biggest stage as of right now, and it has been since 1985. I mean, even the first one, had a lot more viewers, and I was a Starrcade, I was the NWA guy, but WrestleMania came out, and that's everybody's like, oh shit, I want to be part of that. So that's not a shot for Tony or anybody else to take personally until he's got the money. If he can ever get his shit together and maybe put something together just as big as WrestleMania or even bigger. I mean, I know he's got dreams and aspirations, and not a damn thing wrong with that. But until you can do it and surpass WrestleMania, that's what these guys and girls get into the business for.
Yeah, no. And if you remember too, Mick Foley, and the interesting thing with Mick Foley, I was watching a an episode of Primetime, and they were doing, like the squash matches. I don't remember who it was, but there was a guy named Jack Foley. And I looked again and I did a double take and I'm like, oh my God, that's Mick Foley. So Mick Foley once wrestled as a jobber in WWE back in the early mid 80s as Jack Foley. And you think about, okay, Mrs. Foley's baby boy and how, some of them live in their cars. They make like little money per day to work the independent scene to perfect their craft. And then they train hard. They, train to do this. And who, wouldn't want to be on the biggest stage. And Riley just posted, if you notice Riley's comment too, about Ricky Starks. Yeah, his contract's up. I think he should go. I think Tony Khan in a degree is being ridiculous because he's holding down Starks, who actually is going to be in Chicago tomorrow for an independent show. He's holding down again Wardlow. He's holding back Hobbs, for example. He's holding back a lot of those bigger guys. And imagine, Hobbs in WWE. I think he would fit in pretty well. Starks, we know, is a Cody guy. Wardlow, we know Connor needs to go to WWE, but just stop and think about, some of those AEW guys who are on the shelf. What would happen if they were just to put their notice in, go to WWE? Where would they be? WrestleMania.
I was so hoping. I knew it wasn't going to happen, but when they were beating up Hobbs after the match last night, I was so hoping to get a run in from the Hurt Syndicate. He would just fit so perfectly in that group.
I think he would too. Yeah. I think he would.
And it would actually make sense for them to come out and help him and just kind of look at him in a week or so and go, okay, you and Shelton are going after the tag titles. Moxley, Bobby's coming after you. I mean, it would make a lot of sense because they've said they're not there to make friends. They're there to hurt people. So I think it would be a very easy storyline to tie into. But again, just my opinion.
Yeah, they only need 4 people in that group. Like a lot of people like Ricochet and Acclaimed, and like all they need is Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, MVP, and Hobbs, and that's it. Because the original Hurt Business was only 4 people. And if you're trying to it's basically not a rip-off, but the same group as the Hurt Business. So all they need is 1 member. And that 4th member was an up-and-coming star, which was Cedric Alexander.
I thought Cedric and Shelton made a hell of a tag team. Personally.
I did too. I liked Ced Alexander. I also like Shelton. And for Shelton to be the age he is, he looks amazing.
Yeah, he's really good in the ring still. But Cedric Alexander, he's never come into AEW just because of what he said about Big Swole. If anyone doesn't know, Big Swole and Cedric Alexander are married, so I doubt he's ever coming there. So Hobbs would be the perfect 4th man for that group.
Yep. So that's the gist of everything that's been going on this past week. Like I said, I'm really, looking forward to Tony Storm in Australia and see if we get a surprise face Mariah May when the timeless music hits or Luther comes out. We'll see what happens. You never know. But we are here to talk about announcers, the importance of ring announcers and or your commentators, I should say. And I'm gonna, we'll just start off. You see who I've got in the background. I got Bob Caudle and David Crockett. That's where I started off as, and along with Gordon Soley. Gordon Soley was doing Georgia Championship Wrestling, as well as once Georgia Championship Wrestling was no more, he was still doing the Saturday night show for a little bit before Tony Schiavone came in. And Tony Schiavone, if I remember correctly, was doing Worldwide. We went through a lot back then. You'd have Bob Caudle and David Crockett. You'd have Bob Caudle and Johnny Weaver. And, Jesse Ventura wants to say he was the first heel commentator ever. Well, there was this guy named Rod Piper that was brought in. He did come in as a babyface for a little bit, and we'll get to that. I'll get to that here in just a little bit. But those are the ones I started off with. And if you know anything about them, you would know that why I find the stuff today so flipping aggravating and wind up turning the volume down a lot of times. But Connor, who'd you come up watching? I would venture to say at your age, it was probably Ross and Lawler.
Yep. Those 2 are my favorite commentary team. Second would probably be either Mike Tenay and Don West or Michael Cole and Taz. I did go back and watch a lot of old stuff in wrestling. I really liked Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross together. Bobby Heenan was always a good commentator, very, very funny guy. Jesse Ventura was good. I've watched some of the stuff. It was Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan. They did a lot of commentary together. But for me at least, the greatest commentator of all time is Jim Ross. When I watch one of his matches, I'm very emotionally invested. The match could suck, but he would make it so emotionally invested that you wanted to see what was happening. And he like a Stone Cold or like he hated Triple H's guts. I mean, golly, I remember watching this one clip when he was saying like, "Damn you all the hell, Triple H, damn you," because he caught like he beat up Stone Cold. So, but for me, growing up, Jerry and Jim Ross was the main two I would always listen to, like live wrestling at least. But I enjoyed Mike Tenay and Don West. They were good in TNA. Tony Schiavone and I believe it was Tony Schiavone and Bobby Heenan on Nitro there for a while.
It was Tony Schiavone and Larry Zbyszko for the first hour, then Heenan would come in for the second two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and then you had Mongo.
Yeah, at first you'd get you got Mongo and you got Eric Bischoff and Bobby Heenan. Then Bischoff kind of got out of it for a little, got out of it, and Tony started taking over. So, and Tony Schiavone's classic line at the end of the pay-per-view when Hogan turned at Bash at the Beach: "Hulk Hogan, you can go straight to hell, straight to hell."
Oh, gotcha. I remember that.
Yeah, Bobby Heenan was one of the best.
I'll be honest with you though. I mean, and I know a lot of people talk about him, but I love Jim Ross, in his heyday. But for the '90s, man, I love Joey Styles.
Joey Styles was good too. Yeah,
Joey Styles, and doing it by himself most of the time, like he did. He never missed a beat. It was never any kind of dead air or silence. Joey Styles was on point back in the '90s. If you guys have never listened to him do the show by himself for ECW, and I'm not talking about Vince's shitty ass reboot of ECW. I'm talking about the original ECW. Yeah. Joey Styles was amazing.
Like I think he's the only commentator to really be able to pull it off all by himself. Like I don't know anybody else. Like sure as hell not anyone today. I mean Excalibur sure as hell couldn't do it. Definitely not Tony. I like Tony Schiavone, but sometimes he's kind of dragged out a little bit too much.
Tony Schiavone's collecting a paycheck. Let's just
yes.
I like Tony Schiavone, but I don't need to hear him on everything. It's kind of like WCW. Like even Bischoff mentioned this that he felt like he overexposed him a little bit. Like he's on Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, pay-per-views.
Well, they've got so many people that you need to break it up. I mean, Ian Riccaboni we've talked about's there. You got Excalibur, you got Tony. I mean, there's plenty of those people there to break it up. Now Rampage, of course, not being anymore, but you still got Dynamite, Collision, and Ring of Honor. So yeah, the same shit over and over really gets tiring. But you talk about WCW, and something that a lot of people don't either realize or they don't point out. When WCW started trying to compete with the WWE, it wasn't the wrestlers they started signing first. They signed, they brought in Ventura, and then they brought in Mean Gene Okerlund, and they brought in Bobby Heenan before Hogan, Savage, any of those big names. Of course, you get some of the mid card names come over, and Davey Boy had come over for a little bit, and what that did that people don't understand is when you would tune into WCW, and you would see Mean Gene Okerlund coming on the TV, everybody knew who Mean Gene was, and it automatically gave them legitimacy as a company. And then when you would leave Mean Gene and go to the announce booth, you knew who Bobby the Brain Heenan was, and they were bringing people in by making them seem bigger than they were, because you tuned in and you're like, oh, those are the guys that I know. Why'd they come over here? So that's the people they went after first. They went after those names that would be on TV, and Mean Gene could make a stick sound good. So standing there saying absolutely nothing. They said one of the things that Mean Gene was great at was if somebody was kind of lost the train of thought or lost where they were supposed to be going, he was really good at bringing them back in without anybody realizing what he was doing.
Yeah. I've always loved Mean Gene. He's always been one of my favorites.
So, who did you grow up with, Danny? Who was your favorites?
I grew up with Rod Trongard, AWA. I don't remember who else was commentary. Lord James Blears. I think that was the other one. I grew up with Heenan, Monsoon, Alfred, Sean Mooney, Craig DeGeorge. No, Sean Mooney would have been later. Vince and Jesse. And then of course I also grew up with Bob Caudle, David Crockett, Tony Schiavone, Jim Ross. So I also watched NWA too when I was a kid. And then of course you had you had Michael Cole, who I think is annoying. Pat McAfee, love McAfee. Now, if I picked some of my commentators now, but I grew up with them. But I think my favorite was probably Heenan and Monsoon, or Heenan and Alfred. And Alfred was just, for me, it was just,
Alfred Hayes.
Yeah, it was just the accent. And if you watched Alfred, go on YouTube and watch some of the clips of Alfred when he's a heel. He just has like such a intensity when he delivers promos that you did a complete 360 when he was a commentator, because he was lighthearted as a commentator, and just listen to him speak. I could listen to that man commentate all day regarding Alfred, but Heenan again was just in a class on his own.
Well, him and Monsoon had great chemistry, and Michael Cole, I really don't know where I stand on him. I've just kind of gotten used to him. And, I like Taz. I think Taz has done a good job in color commentary. He did a good job in TNA. I like Don West better with Mike Snee, but I think Don West was really underrated. But I thought the best until now. I think Cole and McAfee really get along. It seems like they have fun out there together. But until McAfee came along, for me, Michael Cole's best broadcast partner that I enjoyed him with was JBL. Him and JBL had tremendous chemistry. They did a podcast together, called JBL and Cole, the JBL and Cole show. And they talked about not only wrestling, but politics and a lot of other stuff, wrestling sprinkled in. And I really enjoyed it. But, like David Crockett, well, I'll go way back. David Crockett commentated like he was a fan. He wasn't, he screamed a lot, kind of like Excalibur does, but it was different. David Crockett was just screaming like a fan, like kick him like a dog. He deserves it, opposed to Excalibur screaming out moves that the majority of the wrestling world don't know what they are.
Mute Excalibur's Mike.
And then you go back in the annals of history. Like I said, when they brought Roddy Piper into Georgia Championship Wrestling, they brought him in as a color commentator for Gordon Solie. And he was just simply Rod Piper. He hadn't wrestled, kind of the same thing that WWE did with him in a way, but they brought him in as a manager while he was still healing from his ear injury. But Piper was out there. He'd never gotten physical with anybody, and then he had to defend Gordon Solie from Ole Anderson. Ole Anderson was getting very nasty with Gordon one day, and Piper stepped in front of him, told him to back off. He's like, "What are you going to do?" And Piper just knocked the shit out of him. And
what year was that?
Oh God, it was the early 80s. Early 80s. Hold on, you're gonna make me look. I'll tell you.
I'm just curious because I think I remember seeing Rod Piper at one point.
Yeah, like so they started him off as Rod Piper, the commentator, and
now who's some of the worst commentators? Like while he's looking that up, who's some of the worst commentators you guys have listened to?
Oh God.
I know who my favorite is. Who my worst ever is.
That guy that played the Rio guy, the Rio somebody or other. WWE, Rio Rogers. Does that sound right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Worst commentators, Rio somebody or other. I can't think of the guy's name. Rio.
Oh, Mike Adamle was pretty bad.
Adamle, yeah. No.
I don't see where to put this in the regular chat, so I'm gonna send it in our little private chat. There you go.
Okay, I'll have to look it up. Thank you.
It was Buzz Sawyer, Matt Bourne, aka Doink the Clown, and Ole Anderson, and giving Gordon Solie a hard time, and Rod Piper had to step in.
My worst commentator is Al Snow. I like Al Snow as a wrestler, like some of his commentating stuff just. Oh boy!
I'm gonna look him up because I know I can picture the guy's name, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Rio.
Well, you also go back to how the importance of the commentators is they have the ability to help people get over make them seem important. And it kind of goes back to the same thing that, that was a big no-no in promos back in the day was, you weren't supposed to go out there and talk about how bad your opponent sucked and how bad they couldn't do this and how bad they couldn't do that. Because if you did that, then you went and beat them. Who have you beat? You hadn't beat nobody. And, you were supposed to go out there and put your opponent over in a bad way. And, you weren't supposed to be out there talking about how bad they sucked. And the announcers and the commentators, they're supposed to be helping those guys and girls get over if they're new, explain to you who they are, where they came from, what they've done, instead of screaming out every other move that people really just don't give a damn about what it's called.
Tom Pritchard. That's the one that I could never stand.
Tom Pritchard, the Doctor of Desire.
Yeah, I never could stand Pritchard. For some reason, I liked him as the Brother Love character. He was hysterical.
That's his brother. That's Bruce.
Oh, that was Bruce. Never mind.
Bruce
Sorry. Bruce Pritchard. That's what I was thinking of. Whichever Pritchard it was, hold on. It was the guy that played Rio Rogers. That was Bruce. Yeah, it was Bruce.
I remember that character for a minute, but it's
I never did. I liked him as Brother Love, but I never cared for him on commentary. Another one that I felt was just kind of on commentary would be Sean Mooney. He was just kind of meh to me. I like Craig DeGeorge better, but Sean Mooney was always kind of to me on commentary.
That was kind of the way with me. I like Jonathan Coachman doing his backstage segments, especially like when The Rock was there all the time and the back and forth they would have with each other. But once Coachman got out there on commentary, I didn't care for him a whole lot on actual commentary.
I think him and Jim Ross worked pretty good together, especially like a heel commentator and a face commentator. He got Jim Ross riled up a lot. And I like that because I like when Jim Ross gets riled up and gets mad. So
not now. When Paul Lee replaced Lawler there for, I think it was like a year and a half while Jerry was gone. Yeah, Paul Lee used to get Jim riled up as well. Paul Lee could get him going good.
Yeah,
one who I always thought was good at commentary that just cracked me up was Jim Cornette.
Oh yeah, you gotta love Jimmy. Mm-hmm. Even though some of the things he says is not, and for as liberal as he is, you would think he would understand why some of the shit that comes out of his mouth gets such an uproar. I don't think he cares anymore, but he says what's on his mind off the cuff. There's no filter there. And I've always liked Jim Cornette. I've always liked Jim Cornette. Now, no matter what your politics are, I don't care which way you fall. I don't want to hear you talk about it, period, especially if I'm trying to be entertained. So, during election season, I always fast forward through the first 30 minutes of Jim's podcast so, to get to the wrestling. Weed and bricks, huh?
That's because I tried to yawn and I was trying to go like this when I did it. So I was looking down at the floor. So I was trying hard not to yawn on camera.
No, that's all right. Well, I told you, it's cold here, but apparently it's colder where you are. So I got the heat turned up nice and toasty. Got my fireplace going in the other room. So I don't know. You know how the heat is. Ready to lay down and take a nap and call it a day.
There you go.
But yeah, I really enjoyed going back to, I enjoyed Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. I loved Bob Caudle. When I went to the first fan fest I ever went to was in 2002, 3, something like that in Charlotte. And, when they opened the doors up on Saturday morning, you walked in and they're playing the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling theme with Bob Caudle and David Crockett actually calling it Welcome Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. And I'm like, oh, I'm so warm right now. But, you go through the different angles of history. Like I said, Gorilla and Bobby had such great chemistry, whether you like the WWF product at the time or not. I thought Tony did a good job in WCW during the Nitro era, and you could tell he was just done with it. Today in WCW, I thought filled his role very well. Being that guy that, like when the luchadors and the Japanese stars would come out, he could fill you in on who they were, the different types of moves, but they weren't screaming that every time that one of the other performers came out. Snake, the Professor. I mean, he lived up to his nickname. I I liked him in TNA. I didn't like him as the lead commentator, but I thought him and Don West also had really good chemistry. I still think Don West was really underrated, and I thought they did him shitty when they brought, I know it's Taz, and I know he was coming off SmackDown and Major TV, but I just thought they did Don West dirty when they brought Taz in and replaced him instead of, you could have started. Taz is good with a 3-man booth. You could have left Don West out there for what he contributed to the show, in my opinion.
Yeah, they did an angle where like I believe like he left TNA, whatever, like they had him cut a promo on Mike Tenay, I think. Then did like they ever build on that story, or was that just like a one-time thing? Because that's when I kind of started getting out of TNA.
Yeah, they did the same with Tony Schiavone. He came to one TV taping, and good old Vince Russo. That's when he had his sex group, Sports Entertainment Extreme, and Tony come out there and he started basically, cussing Mike Tenay, saying, "Where was you to get me a job here when WCW went out of business and I was unemployed?" And he walked off with Russo's group, and he's talked about it. He said he got to the back and was just like, "I don't want to do this anymore," and just told him, because he hadn't signed a contract. He was just there on an appearance fee, and he's like, I appreciate the offer, but I don't want to do this anymore. So, and it seems like now I think he's happy being back around a lot of his friends from back in the day, because Sting was back there, and Flair's come in and out some, and just some of the other people that's come in and out since the inception of AEW. And I think at first he was probably really excited because he hadn't done it in 20 years, but now it just seems like I said, it just seems like he's collecting a paycheck, and it's time to move on and get some other people over it. I mean, like I said, Ian Riccaboni does a great job, and people might crap on it at first because of they like Excalibur or whatever the case may be. But I think if you gave Ian a true chance, 6 months to a year, people would forget about the other stuff that's going on and actually listen to Ian Riccaboni tell a story.
Yeah, I do like Ian Riccaboni. I think he's got a very fun style that's very different. Excalibur is just annoying to me. I do like Taz because I also grew up watching Taz. Obviously, I grew up watching Tony Schiavone, but Ian Riccaboni, when Tony's ready to retire, replace him with Ian Riccaboni, and I think he would do great. I also love a heel Jericho on commentary. When Jericho would fill in to do commentary occasionally on Rampage, that when he was using the Judas theme, that was the fun Jericho. Jericho now, you need to mute his mic too.
No, I mean, he knows he's being annoying, and it's like, I guess people have figured it out by now, but it's like at first people didn't seem like they had figured out the fact that he was out there, not in a bad way, just kind of poking fun at Tony Khan with the "hi guys, bye guys," stuff like that he's doing. But no, I think when it's time for him to hang it up, I think he'd do a great job as a color commentator.
Yeah, I think he would too, because he's got that humor. Daddy Magic is fun. However, he can sometimes be a bit much, but the one that I think depressed me was when Eric Bischoff left commentary and revealed himself as the leader of the NWO. That just is kind of depressing because I did like Bischoff on commentary.
Well, it's as much as I liked Piper on commentary back in the day when they tried to do it with him in the WWF with Vince. I didn't think it worked. It was a different version of Piper that it wasn't the Piper that got over. It wasn't, he was still quick-witted and he had his one-liners like Heenan and stuff like that, but the chemistry with him and Vince just was not there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Don't everybody chime in at once now.
Yeah, for me, for AEW, the only commentators I like, I used to like Excalibur, but over time he's just gotten overboard with it. Tony Schiavone, again, I like Tony Schiavone, but I'm sick of hearing his voice. I mean, Dynamite, Collision, pay-per-views, Battle of the Belts, all this crap. He does not need to be on everything. Each commentary team should have complete different people. Dynamite should have their own people. Collision should have their own people. That's why I like Punk's Collision, because it was Kevin Kelly and Nigel McGuinness. They weren't on Dynamite. So it was fresh, new. Matt Menard, I don't like him at all on commentary. Especially when him and Excalibur are on commentary together. When they're together, they are terrible together.
Whose mic do you want to mute more?
Both of them.
Daddy Magic's or Excalibur's?
Both. Just have no one talk. No commentary.
I know some people don't like Nigel, but I think he's funny. Like especially when
He's
Danielson.
I love Nigel. I actually got
be wrestling. Danielson be wrestling. He would be making all those off the wall snide comments about Danielson. He had me rolling a couple of those things he said about Bryan Danielson.
He really did. Yeah. When we went to Dynamite, I actually got speaking of commentary, I got a picture of the commentary booth, what it looks like. And Nigel McGuinness turned around and smiled at me. And I was beaming ear to ear. He is fun. I love Nigel McGuinness. It's just the accent, actually, for me.
I've met Nigel McGuinness one time. He's very, very nice. I met him at Squared Circle Expo last year. And however much you paid him is how many push-ups he would do. So I bought an autograph and picture with him. It was like $30, and he did 30 push-ups. So like someone paid him 100, he did 100 push-ups. I thought that was pretty funny.
I don't know, on a different subject. I don't know if y'all have seen it or not, but was Chris Charlton, the one of the English commentators for New Japan Pro Wrestling, was suspended for the shots he took at Tony Khan. What did y'all think about that?
I didn't hear. I heard like little clips of it, but apparently it got personal between him and Tony Schiavone put something out, and he deleted the post. Apparently, some would say New Japan suspended him, but I have a feeling that Tony probably had an input on that because Tony cannot take criticism whatsoever.
Well, if you stop and think about it, I mean, there's probably a lot of, he probably has some heat in New Japan, and I mean, they're working with him and bringing people to the States, but look at all he's taken away all their top stars and brought them to the States. And, most of them have not, they see that they're not getting the, they're over there in the Tokyo Dome filling up, 30,000 people, and they come over here and they're performing in front of 4,500 people. And, unless it's pay-per-view, like I say, AEW always seems to do pay-per-view really well. They do well at filling up 15, 16,000 seats arena for the pay-per-views, but, he's taken since AEW's inception. I mean, look at everybody New Japan lost at one time. I mean, they lost Hangman Page, they lost Kenny Omega, they lost the Bucks, and they lost Cody all at one time to come over here and start AEW. So, I mean, just because they still work with him, he's probably not well liked in that circle, if I had to guess.
Probably not. And like none of the people that they've brought has really done anything. Like they're like you said, they're over in New Japan. They're drawing big numbers, and then like Dynamite's average right now is 2,000, 3,000 people, and a lot of people tried to convince me that Ospreay and Okada was going to be like how Punk and Danielson and Cole were when they signed, and it's completely night and day. Like they drew like a whole lot more than what they're drawing, and they've signed like in the beginning, the Bucks, Hangman, Omega, Cody, it's an Ospreay, Okada, Jay White, Juice Robinson, who else? United Empire.
Yeah, it's like we talked about last week. Jay White's just finally starting to get a decent push.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what's he been there, 2-3 years now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's like 22 or 23, yeah.
And so, I mean, I think the biggest, to me, and this is just, again, my opinion, I think the biggest thing that's been shown about how some of the top performers, performer personally, feels about AEW was when Kenny Omega made his return, he didn't come back to AEW first. His first match was in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Mm-hmm. And, that's where he made his name. And, I'll give Tony his due. I don't know how Kenny's contract is structured, whether he needed Tony's permission or not. But if he did and Tony let him do it, then, kudos to him for letting him do it. But, when you help start a company and you've been out for as long as Kenny was, not knowing if you were going to be able to come back, depending on how surgeries went, and your first match to test your body is not in the company you helped start, but the company, across the ocean, to me, that says a lot.
Yeah. And like the last time we saw him, he got beat up by the Young Bucks. They didn't continue any of that.
I mean, it's like
it happened, and then it was like, oh, we forgot about it.
Well, it's no different than Cole, O'Reilly, and Fish beating up the Young Bucks when Cole and O'Reilly were were both injured, not cleared to wrestle. And, we never got anything else out of that. So that's why I said I'm really hoping they don't fumble the ball with this Tony Storm stuff. I'm going to be really upset if they do. But, so I mean, we've talked about all the different stuff. But like I said, the commentators are so important to help you get over. And instead of, to me, like, this is why I don't like Excalibur. Instead of trying to get some of the people over, he's screaming, move after move after move. At the, that is in Japan, Japan moves, lucha moves. And like Mike Tenay did a real good job with that. He wasn't screaming. He, getting the moves across, letting you know what they were called in different places. And it's taken the focus away from the performers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he's what they call it. He's a color commentator. Is that right? Or is he a play-by-play?
Well, I mean, like I told you, if you go back and watch the first few episodes of Dynamite, I mean, he actually did a good job when he was there with Tony and Jim Ross. And I know Jim's getting older, and I know that he loses his train of thought some. And, I know he calls people by their WWE names and this, that, and the other. Who cares? But, Ross doesn't need to be on there all the time anymore. He's past that. I mean, I think it makes by them bringing him out on the pay-per-views for the last 2 matches, I think that gives those matches more importance. I think it's a smart thing to do. But Excalibur did a good job on those first few episodes of Dynamite, and until he took over the main commentator spot when Jim Ross went out with some health issues, he was doing a good job. He wasn't screaming; he was getting across those moves and then letting Jim do the majority. What Jim does, and it's like as soon as he took that middle spot, he's trying to get himself over more than he is anybody else. And again, I know some people like him. If you like him, that's good. It's it's entertainment. It's opinion. I mean, it's nothing's really right, nothing's really wrong. It's what you like, and that's just kind of how I feel about old Sockface.
Yeah, his position was better not being the middleman. He was better as. I wish they would sign Mauro Ranallo, but I really don't think he wants to do weekly TV. I think AEW was trying to reach out to him because he did TNA a few times, but it really feels like he does not want to do wrestling anymore on a weekly basis.
Is it Josh Matthews on TNA still, or is it Tom Phillips now?
They got Tom Phillips and Aiden English, or whatever his name is now.
Okay.
But Josh Matthews still works in a producer role, I think. But they need to do a massive reboot of their commentary team. And Matt Menard no longer allowed on commentary. That's the rule. He's no longer allowed anywhere near the commentary desk.
Just like Marina Shafir is no longer allowed to appear on TV.
If I was in charge, she'd be gone probably.
Well, I lose track of time, but Ruby Rider should either be very close to having that baby by now, should she?
No, she already had her.
So it's no reason that you can't bring Parker back and have 2.0 back in the tag team division.
Yeah, like the tag team division,
I agree.
Like the tag division is in shambles. This is the worst it's ever been.
And this is not a knock on Private Party. I just got to giggling last night when they introduced him at a total combined weight of 300 and some odd. I'm like, dear
I know,
God,
I caught that too.
I'm like, dear God, one of the natural disasters outweighed the whole team by over 150 pounds.
I know, I caught that too. I was like 3 something. I was like, wait, what? What do you guys think of Joe Tessitore?
I think he's progressing well. I do. I know he caught a lot of criticism on his first night for not being emotional enough, and you could actually hear, if you go back and watch that first episode of Raw that he was on, toward the end, you could hear him kind of getting a little more excited about certain things because I guess he had Triple H or somebody else in his ear going, "Hey, you show a little emotion, but not over the top." And I think he's progressed well. I do. And you bring up him and all those tweets that Corey Graves had done, and now they've since been deleted. I'm kind of curious as to where that's going as well, because Corey will be the one that replaces McAfee when McAfee goes back to College Game Day when college football season starts back up. But I wonder what kind of storyline they're doing with Corey here.
Yeah, I really think I don't know if that's a story or not. He was on NXT about a week when The Rock was on there. He did not look happy at all.
No, he didn't. He was very quiet, and Corey normally has a lot to say. I noticed that. I'm like, he's not very talkative.
Like I didn't know it. Like now, since he put that out, now I can see, why. Pat McAfee needs to make his mind up, I think, because it kind of screws everything up. Like nobody can get adjusted to anybody. Like nobody can get any chemistry because he comes in and out whenever he wants.
Well, actually, Triple H has talked about that. It's not him coming in and out. When he took the College Game Day job, that was actually Triple H who come out and talked about it and said that, when he took the job for College Game Day, that he had told them that not to worry, he was still going to do his duties for SmackDown and College Game Day, that he would just leave wherever SmackDown was and fly to where College Game Day was. And Triple H was the one that said he told him, no, that was just too much. When it's time to do it, you go do you. When it's over, you can come back. That's how much we think of him. So he was prepared to put himself through that and stay doing it. And he was given, it's like you can't be mad at him for doing stuff when they're given the option or given that opportunity. So
I think they should go back to the ruthless aggression era style, where Raw had a 3-man and SmackDown had a 2-man. Because Corey Graves is a very good commentator, and obviously he does not want to be back on NXT. Obviously, he feels that he should be on the main shows, which I think he should. Hopefully, they work that out.
I think he paid his dues to get where he was.
Yeah, as he said in one of his tweets, he can't wrestle anymore. And then he went to a different position in wrestling and was really good at it. Like, he was better than a lot of people thought he was going to be. So I really hope they work that out. They get him, because I would hate for him to leave. Because I like him in WWE. I think he fits their style. I've always liked him as a heel commentator, face commentator. So hopefully they work that out. And
well, I'll tell you too, though, if this is an actual shoot and he's pissed off and he winds up getting released, and Tony brings him in, I mean, I think it would be a good move. Plus, it would be interesting. Tony's going to let him go out there and say whatever the hell he wants to say. So I'd be interested to see what he had to say.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because they did say he was cleared to wrestle again. So
yeah, he from what I had read something a while back where he was talking about he finally got cleared to wrestle again, and that's not something he wanted to do full time. But they just had that mixed tag team match with Seth and Becky against Miz and Maurice, and he said that he'd love to do something like that with Carmella. And then 2 weeks later, she's announcing she's pregnant, so that kind of went to the wayside. So
maybe
we'll see.
Maybe he pops up in the Royal Rumble. You never know.
No, you don't. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know, what's a work and what's a shoot until somebody actually gets released these days. And that keeps it interesting because you kind of have to. If you're gonna use the internet, use it to keep people confused. Don't use it to just come out here and tell people what's actually going to happen.
And if it's not a work, they should turn it into a work.
Absolutely.
Or it could be a workout all to begin with, but I hope if it is not a work, that they work things out. Because I really like Corey Graves, and he deserves to be on a top spot.
Well, another thing I've heard floated around too is Barrett does not want to come back for a full-time in-ring career, but where they've kind of teased a feud with him and Drew McIntyre, where you might see Bad News, get back in the ring once or twice for a match with McIntyre. So that could open up something else as well. So you just, that I'll give them this. They're Michael Cole was funny talking about when Penta come out, the worst kept secret in wrestling. I was like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Because, with the internet, nothing is a surprise anymore. So I don't care what company it is. If you can surprise me, I'm pleased, because it's hard to do anymore.
Yeah.
It's like CM Punk coming back in Chicago. It's like it was rumored, but you weren't sure, and he didn't sign his contract till right before he walked out. So, that's why he got that pop. And I agree with him. It wouldn't have worked that well anywhere but Chicago for his re-debut.
For the AEW or Survivor Series?
The Survivor Series when he come out. Because he said when him and Triple H were talking, Triple H was like, well, if we don't get it done by then, we can still do it later down the road. And he was like, no, it's got to be Chicago. For it to work, it's got to be Chicago. And I agree with him, because you don't know what kind of reaction he would have got. He would have still gotten a reaction, but it would have been that big of a reaction anywhere other than Chicago.
Yeah, like comparing the one that he had in AEW, like everyone kind of seen it coming. Everybody was reporting on it. But with WWE, like, nobody was sure. Like, we saw these teases on WWE. Like Corey Graves said, he made a tease at CM Punk. Like, there was these different teases, but everyone kept denying it, so you never knew what was true. But when it actually happened, it was more surprising. Which nowadays everything gets reported, so nothing's really a surprise anymore. That's why one reason I think the internet kind of killed wrestling a little bit as far as shock value goes. there is very few surprises that are kept secret anymore.
Yeah, like I said, the NWO would not have been as successful as it was back in the day if everybody would have known Scott Hall's contract was up, Kevin Nash's contract was up. Hey, Scott Hall's going to be on Nitro tonight. And it wouldn't have had the same impact that it did. And one of the things Eric Bischoff has said that he thoroughly regrets was not forcing Bret Hart to come to the Nitro the next night after the screw job. He's like, I was trying to be the nice boss and give him time to do what he needed to do and, get his head right. And he goes, I should have told his ass to be here and go vent your frustrations on a microphone in the ring. He goes, but I didn't do it.
And again, too, with the whole Punk thing, I think too that, he would have gotten that reaction, but would it have big if it wasn't Chicago? But then with the AEW return, everybody kind of counted on him being there. We all knew he was going to be there, but then to come back at Survivor Series and walk out at the end, that was a shock. And I remember I was sitting in my sister's living room for her old house that she lived in, which is much bigger than this one. And I was just laying on her couch and I was keeping up, with Survivor Series. And I was like, wait, what? And I literally dropped the phone because I was stunned. And I think with the contract being signed at the last possible second, that's what made it the element of surprise. The other thing, Connor, you're right, with the internet, that really killed pro wrestling to a degree because now everybody reports on everything. You've got one person saying this, you've got one person saying that, you've got somebody saying that. You don't know who to believe. We all know we don't believe Uncle Dave because we know Uncle Dave doesn't really. Uncle Dave can't handle the truth. And you do have some credible people that are reporting, but it's where's the element of surprise? And Jason, you're right with the Kurt Call incident at MSG when the four of them were hugging in the ring, and then I think it was it the next night or a week later that Hall popped up on Nitro?
It wasn't very long. I mean,
it was a couple days or like a week.
Yeah, it wasn't very long.
Yeah. So when he showed up, okay, what if the internet was around that, but it wasn't, as big as it is now. But what if that was 10 years later? Would that have had the same effect as it did back in 1996? If it were 2006, would it have the same effect? We don't know.
Yeah,
most likely not.
If you go back to Bash at the Beach, Hogan's name, hell, even Sting's name was never, rumored on the internet to be the third man. So, I don't know, but it's like we talk about Dallas all the time. How successful would Dallas have been if you could have find out what's happening before Friday night? I mean, how many people?
Yeah, exactly.
Because some of that stuff paid off, and some of it was just like a popcorn fart, but you still watched it because
absolutely.
But how many people would have still watched if they could have went online and the script was released. This is what's going to happen. Deshaun just asked what the company promotion of the year was. And I mean, it depends on what you look at. If you just want to look at metrics, I mean, the WWE blows everybody else out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with attendance, their revenue, merchandising. I mean, you can love AEW all you want. And I'm like, I watch it. It's not a knock on them. It's just how it is. I mean, it's like it was like, I've heard people that work for, the NWA/WCW after Turner bought it before the NWO days saying they hated to say they were second because they were such a far away second. It was not like they were, very close to overtaking WWE. And it's like, so I use that same metric with it. It's, how do you, I'm sure there's different matches in different places that you liked, and that's okay. But, if you're just looking at a company from a whole standpoint between, the matches that happen, the success of Mania, the success of their overseas stuff they've done, the signing of the Netflix deal, they're everywhere. I mean, so, I can't see how that's even close. But again, that's subject to opinion, depending on what your criteria for that is.
Yes. As a whole.
As a whole, really, Deshaun? Or maybe he means like the whole, what was the whole promotion that was like the best one out of everything? Just overall.
I mean,
Maybe that's what it means.
For me, what I enjoyed the most in 2024 was WWE. I enjoyed a lot of their weekly shows, all their PLEs. I didn't think AEW had a strong year as they had in years past. Like 2023 was bad. I think it was a little bit. It was better in 23 a little bit, but a lot of bad booking decisions, a lot of bad business decisions too that scared a lot of people away. But for me, it was WWE. I get as a whole, if that's what you mean. I enjoyed WWE the most as a product. Yeah.
What about you, Danny?
I think AEW had its good points. It had its unique points. It always has, just something unique about it that keeps, people interested. But I think overall, it was WWE with, just some of the things that they've had, going on, just with feud wise and, just everything else. And I think just more of that consistent storytelling for WWE compared to AEW's, booking by, drawing out of a hat type thing. I think that does make WWE the better company out of the two.
Yeah, and we didn't have I know that's been, well, I don't know how long he's been back. No, it was at World's End, so that would have happened last year. But Edge coming back as Cope to me would have been like the WWE bringing Jade Cargill in as Carg.
I mean, we're all coping with Cope.
Well, I mean, again, and that's I know he wanted to do that, but that's just that's where my issue with AEW comes in is like, dude, you got to learn to say no sometimes, and you might not be right about everything, and if somebody can really explain it to you and sell it to you why they want to do it, and you want to give it a shot, so be it. I mean, that's happened in wrestling for years. Vince even said he sat down and listened. There were sometimes he changed his mind. Another time you're like, yeah, we're still not doing that.
Who came up with the name Cope? Was that even determined?
It was Copeland. Because he actually went out himself and trademarked it, as for wrestling, trademarked it, Cope. And it's like, oh dear God. Are we gonna
that's when Tony, like it's like Tony's afraid to say no. Like, I don't care who you are, like if it's a bad idea, no. Like it's okay to listen to ideas from talent, but that's just terrible. Cope.
And I hate to say this, but I think Ruby, yeah, that's one of Beth and Cope's daughters, but I think Ruby and Lyric, I think that's the other one. They could probably come up with a better name for him.
But as far as promotion goes, you talk about different people it's been used. I mean, I've said before, I thought MJF did the best thing as far as staying in AEW. I don't think the stick he does in AEW is going to get over or be able to be used as much as he uses it, in AEW as he would the WWE. Maybe on Netflix now that he could get away with a lot more, but I think he's better off where he's at. I think they've used Tony Storm much, much better. That was, Tony Storm was very much coveted by Triple H, but Vince kind of shit on her when Triple H was out. But I think she's been presented a lot better in AEW than she was in WWE. On the flip side, Pillman's not burning the world down, but he's been presented a whole lot better on NXT than he ever was WWE programming. I feel the same for Ethan Page. We talk about promotions, and Deshaun, I feel the WWE did, was the promotion of the year for a lot of the same reasons that Danny and Connor mentioned. AEW is so up and down in weekly booking, it doesn't give you that. We watch it because we watch wrestling, but it's not that. Oh shit! This happened last week, man. I got to see I got to see where it goes from here. And,
right.
And I wished he hadn't bought Ring of Honor. I wish somebody else would have bought Ring of Honor. And I'm glad that, TNA is having a partnership with WWE, not being bought, because it gives us something else to watch. That just because they're in a partnership with them doesn't mean they can tell them what to do. They might give them some resources or give them some advice and help them get on TV. But, Ring of Honor, I loved watching Ring of Honor. I thought it was an amazing product. I mean, it really, came in at a time with WCW being out and, WWF being the only product around, it gave us something else to watch. And it gave us CM Punk. It gave us Bryan Danielson. It gave us Nigel McGuinness. I mean, Samoa Joe. all those people that were introduced by Ring of Honor, and now it's just it's. I mean, I think Athena is probably the only like legit Ring of Honor thing they've got right now because everybody else goes back and forth. I think putting the ROH World Title on Jericho just makes it a joke. I didn't mind it being on Mark Briscoe, but Briscoe's on TV every week with AEW. It's like I just wish he would either close it down or do something with it. But
right. Yeah. See,
no, go ahead.
There was a report before Tony bought it that Anthem was that they own TNA, that they were interested in buying it. I'm curious what they would have done with it. What was their plan with it? There for a while, TNA was using some of the Ring of Honor people. They had Ian Riccaboni on there. They had Jonathan Gresham when he was the what is that title called?
The Pure Championship.
Yeah, the Pure Championship. Like they had matches there. They had some Ring of Honor matches there, but I do wish someone else would have bought it. Like Friends Penny Jr. would have been better because ROH should be its own product. Now it makes me think of Dark a little bit, the weekly show. Like there's a lot of matches that I could care less for. I mean, you don't need all your big stars from AEW on there, but you can make it interesting. Even with some lower tier talent, but Athena is the only thing that really sticks out in Ring of Honor. Like she's
the only one that they really haven't brought back and forth. You've seen her on AEW TV a few times, but I mean she's been there a couple of years now and held that title for a long time, and you just don't see her very often. I mean she's got a great look. She's good in the ring. I mean,
it seems like all the men champions can float between. But the ROH women's champions stay on Ring of Honor because even Red Velvet, she's the ROH women's TV champion. She's only on Ring of Honor as well. So
straight from your mama's kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, so we got a lot of stuff that keep that's moving ahead. I mean, we got the Royal Rumble coming up. We've got AEW Australia Grand Slam. There's all kinds of things coming up. I'll be interested to see what the partnership does. The upcoming TNA NXT joint pay-per-view that they're talking about, they're going to be doing now. There's a lot to look forward to. And, hopefully somebody hurries up and takes this belt off John Moxley because I've just had enough of that storyline. I'm ready to be done with LA Knight and Shinsuke Nakamura. Just let them go their separate ways. Do what you're going to do with that. I will be interested to see. I think the date for it, whatever this date's supposed to be, is the 27th, whatever special that's supposed to be. But I saw somewhere that's supposed to be the night that Solo acknowledges Roman, which is going to be on Netflix. You got the Royal Rumble coming up with Cody and Steen. Yes, he's still Kevin Steen to me. I don't care what the hell his name has been for 10 years.
I thought you were saying Sting.
And Cody will probably retain the title. You never know what could happen. I mean, but for the most part, I'm pretty sure he will. But even that being said, that I think they'll beat the hell out of one another. It'll be an interesting match to watch and a ladder match. Steen was always good in Ring of Honor, and I'm glad they finally let him start using that package pile driver because he's been there 10 years and he's finally getting to use it. And I'm sure that's because Vince is gone as well. So just a lot of stuff to look forward to. Gives us all kinds of interesting topics, and we're coming up on the hour. Danny, you got any parting thoughts?
Yeah. When are we going to have our Who Shot JR moment in AEW?
You know what? If they want to get me interested in Excalibur, give him a storyline and have somebody come over and rip the mask off of it. Now, whether they show his face or not, something like Tony throw him a towel, Taz throw him a towel or something. Get if you're gonna let him sit out there. Here's my thing with his mask. If he was a legendary luchador and they just brought him in occasionally to, hey, I've trained this guy, I've wrestled this guy, whatever, I wouldn't have an issue with it. But you're still sitting over there in a damn mask like you're a wrestler. Like you're never coming back in the ring. You look like a fucking idiot, and you sound even worse. So I mean, do something with him, or just like move him over and get the audience used to Ian Riccaboni. I mean, that's my thing with him. I mean, he looks like he's still trying to get himself over that damn mask, and that again goes back to our topic. That is not the importance of a commentator. The importance of a commentator is to get the guys and girls over and tell the story, not scream out moves that you probably can't even spell. So
You can get over without doing it. Like a Jim Ross, he got over big time without even focusing on himself sometimes.
Yeah, the only time he ever really focused on himself was when he would come back from, his health scares and, they do where he got fired again or how Vince treated. But that never lasted really long. It would be kind of they let him do it for a couple of weeks and then it would go about the wayside and he was back to being the Jim Ross that everybody liked to listen to. So again, I think that's one good thing commentator wise that AEW has done well is bringing him out for the last match or the last two matches to give them that big fight feel. I think that does a really good job of that.
Yeah. And I still remember, and as we're talking about JR, I still remember Undertaker Mankind when the Undertaker threw Mankind off the top of the cage. That was Hell in a Cell 97, Jason, I believe. Am I right? It's 97 or 98.
Somebody stop the damn match. He's broken in half.
And oh my God, he's dead. And there was just such an emotion with JR on commentary that he made it sound very intense. It was emotional. It was just but then you were hyped, where I feel like Excalibur tries too hard to be hyped and he can't live up to the hype, no pun intended.
I don't know if you ever heard him talk about the night Owen Hart died, but I know people want their jobs, but I do think in his position that after that show was over, that I might have gotten fired by going back there and beating the ever loving hell out of Kevin Dunn. I don't know if you ever heard him talk about it, but when they came back, they were doing some kind of package promo, and he's like, "Hey, is there any update on Owen? The crowd's gonna, people's gonna want to know." And Kevin Dunn's like, "Oh yeah, he's dead. We're back in 3, 2, 1."
I would have
been like,
"Oh, I would have."
I would have made a Bash at the Beach 2000.
Yeah, that would have. Yeah,
that. Oh, yeah, and again, just stop and think about like what Owen, where Owen would be. We've been watching Nitro on Peacock, and I think we're which part are we on now? We're 1998, I believe. We passed 97. So we're like somewhere in the throes of 1998. And Owen is like, there. And it's about, I want to say we're about 6 to 8 months prior to Owen's death. And as you sit there and just watch it, it's just like you wonder exactly where he would be. Who would he be? What he would be, where he would be.
Well, you go back to when he passed. That was and it's been said multiple times. You never hear Martha talk about it, but that whole the return of the blue blazer gimmick was it was pitched a storyline to him that they wanted because Deborah was managing Jeff at the time, so she was coming out with both of them. It was pitched to him that they wanted to do an affair angle with him and Deborah to get Jeff going, him and Jeff going with each other, and they even had Martha comment on his infidelity, and he was like, absolutely not. No. I've got small kids, and they kept pitching stuff to him. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And that's when Vince Russo come back and put him in the blue blazer gimmick as kind of a, going back, throwback to the 80s of the cartoon stuff. And, Owen did, made the best of it and did what he could with it. And, but like I said, then you see what came of it. But speaking of Owen, what about my boy Double J? I've thoroughly enjoyed these last few weeks with Double J. MJF doing his damnedest to get under his skin last night, and Jeff Jarrett just sitting there smiling and laughing at him, talking about once he got done. I think the line was, "You want to sit there and rehash stuff that's been said before, and it was said better than what you ever could." I was like, "Ooh, get him, Jeff! Get him!"
That was one entertaining promo.
I don't think they'll put the title on him, but I like the storyline. Let him look good. And bad thing is, and people will shit on me for saying this, but you look at a 58, 59-year-old Jeff Jarrett, how old he is now, and he's in better shape than half the roster. I mean, he's in better shape than your world champion. And as Dean Ambrose, he was always in great shape. And he
really was.
I don't know what the hell his body's went and done, but you look at Jeff Jarrett, and I mean, you can see the guns he's got going on when he comes out. He's not afraid to take his shirt off. He's in great shape to be almost 60 years old. And, God bless him for it. So get him, Double J. You got me going. I'm entertained. It's been my favorite part of the program the last few weeks.
Yeah, I've enjoyed their segments together. It's been pretty good. I hope after this they do something bigger with MJF because we got the Devil storyline. Now he's going against Jeff Jarrett. I hope they do something more. With
you know what I'd really like to see, and it's not going to happen. But what I'd really like to see is them to keep this stuff up, going back and forth with MJF and Jeff Jarrett, and Jarrett get a title shot, and MJF come out, and you think MJF's about to screw Jeff Jarrett, but he helps him. And after Jeff Jarrett wins the title, they hug because Jarrett's always been a chicken shit heel, and he's been a good one. I mean, he was a young hot baby face in Memphis before he went to the WWF. But once he got to the big time, he's been that chicken shit run heel, and he's been great at it. So, and nobody would really see that coming. MJF comes out, you look at this bastard, he's coming out, he's going to cost Jeff Jarrett the match, and he helps him. And then they start laughing together. I'd be like, there's the Jeff Jarrett we all know and love. But, like I said, I don't know if they're think that far ahead or look at the whole picture, but that's just me.
Remember, it's always it's booking out of the names out of a hat. You've got all the names of the roster in the hat, and Tony Khan, he's got dry erase boards and a big old dry erase board in his office, and he's like, oh, you wrestle today? Oh, you wrestle next week? Nope, we're going to give you the next week. So it's kind of like, remember coloring, or it's coloring when you were a kid, like you'd have all your crayons lined out. Then you would use the red one first. Red would go at the end, and then you would use the next one and the next one. That's how Tony Khan books.
And well, maybe if you get lucky, he'll finally get to the W's to pull the name out. So
who knows? Saddam Singh might be world champion or get a title opportunity next month.
Who's that?
Saddam Singh. You never know. He might be pulled. He might be pulled out of the hat and get a title shot.
That guy's awful. At least Paul White could move back in the day. So, Connor, any parting thoughts?
Is him.
Wardlow. Yeah, Wardlow. I mean, if he gets pulled out of the hat, he'll probably just put it back. Honestly.
Pretty much.
That's probably what he would do.
Yeah, and we need and we need Starks too, and then we're good.
Yeah, I think next time you'll see Starks will be
NXT.
WWE. Probably next.
I would love to be able to actually look at that. That's the one good thing about WWE being public. You can actually find that stuff wherever they have to put it about when contracts expire and all that stuff. But AEW being privately owned, you can't go on there and really find the information you're looking for. But again,
I know Starks, his contract expires this summer.
Yes, Starks does. I knew that. Do we know when? Just out of curiosity, do we know when Wardlow's expires?
I haven't heard anything.
But I'll tell you, if Starks has already made it clear that he's not going to re-sign, you will see Starks about a month before his contract expires to do job after job after job. Tony showed us that with Jade Cargill. I know she had to drop the title, and that was fine. But when he brought her back on Rampage to do one more job to Chris Statlander, she thought she was done. And he called her the day before. She talked about it. He called her the day before and said, I need you to come TV tomorrow night. She's like, I thought I was done. And he's like, I need you to put Chris over again. She's like, no, I don't want to do that. He's like, you're still under contract to me. So he didn't give her a choice. So, so like I said, if you see Ricky Starks on TV again, if he's definitely said he's not coming, you're going to see him doing a lot of jobs before he leaves.
Yeah. I think he's doing a lot of independent stuff. I think he's trying to get his body. Well, he's never been in bad shape, but like get some ring rust off because it's been a while since he's been wrestling. He did GCW one time, and then he can't ever wrestle there again. I thought that was stupid. And then they have Jericho show up there, but Ricky Starks isn't allowed to wrestle there. That's just. But I think Ricky Starks is going to be doing a lot of independent stuff till the summertime, and then we'll see him at probably NXT's Heat Wave. He'll make his debut probably then.
Well, and again, it's a wrestling business, so you never know unless the internet leaks it. Well, we are a little bit past the hour. Guys and girls, I appreciate you joining us. Danny, a pleasure as always. Connor, thank you for joining us and doing what you do to make sure we can do all this each and every week. And I do not have a topic yet for next week, so I'm kind of waiting to see what happens with the coming weeks, next few days, before I decide on what we might do next week. If you got any suggestions, you can send it. We're all over the place, all Elite Zone, and then of course the Worldwide of Wrestling. What do you got coming up this week for that, Connor? You got the Pod Champs coming back, or just some live reviews?
So we have SmackDown tomorrow night. We plan on having another Pod Champs episode on Saturday. We plan on this time doing the something of ECW. I think Mr. Jacobs had mentioned to me. We have 500 episodes already planned. I think the next one's ECW, WCW. I know we got two different ones. Maybe it's like the Rise and Fall of ECW, maybe or something.
That's a great DVD.
Yeah, I've got the WCW one, but I've been trying to find the Rise and Fall of ECW. I always like watching documentaries, especially of wrestling.
It's actually on Peacock.
Yeah,
What
I've
is?
been meaning to always watch
The rise and fall or the downfall of ECW, whatever they called it.
I really like watching the more so the Monday Night Wars documentary on Peacock. Like it's
That's good.
it's like an episodic documentary.
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 seasons of that.
Yeah, and it's more in detail than the DVD. A lot of that stuff reminds me of AEW sometimes when they talk about stuff. But we might be doing a TNA. I don't know. We talked about it this weekend. TNA Genesis, or NXT is supposed to be involved this weekend. We might do something with that on the wide world of wrestling.
Well, I've got access to the TNA app, so maybe one Thursday we'll do a watch along with TNA one night.
Yeah, they come on Thursdays. Yeah, they're I think on TNA Plus and Access TV, of course.
Yeah, so maybe we can plan on doing that one night, like maybe either a after pay-per-view show or the show before their pay-per-view, and see what's about to happen there. See what NXT people might show up.
Yeah, I have a feeling Corey Jade's going to show up this weekend. If you don't watch NXT on Tuesday, Masa Slamovich, she showed up on NXT, and Corey Jade kind of looked at her, so she might pop up in TNA this weekend.
Again, it's a wrestling world, so you never know what's going to happen. But again, we appreciate you joining us. Back next Thursday. We're not really sure what we're doing yet, but we'll be here talking some kind of shit. You know, it's always good. Always good being with you guys. Guys and girls, we appreciate it. And until next Thursday,